Speaking of which, look, there's a new restroom pass. That's the last one I have. So if you guys don't take better care of it, no more restroom pass, no more restroom. It is tough. It's also, you're right, but I've also gone that'll be the 10th or 12th restroom pass I've had to go through this year.
Really?
Yeah, and you guys, yeah, they get bored, so they like to play games like, hey, can I toss it against the board and make it stick? And can I make paper mache out of it and stick it in my pocket and stuff? And it doesn't last very long, so let's try to take care of it. Today marks the 4th different way that we try to do the exact same thing.
Why do we use so many ways?
Because that's life. We're still working on solving quadratic equations. So for fun, let's just review what are some of the different ways that we have solved quadratic equations.
Factoring.
Factoring, square root property, and what other factoring, square root property, one more. The most recent one that we learned. You know what it's called, but you can't.
I don't know what it is.
If only I would just like print out the notes for you each day and ask you to keep them in one central location. Because then in times of need, you can refer to this one central reference. Completing the square, good. Completing the square. It's poison. Now, the thing is, I leave this method for the end for a couple of reasons. One of them being, well, once we cover this, you're not going to want to use the other ones. That's not to say that it is perfect, because mistakes are still made here. But you know, this quadratic formula tends to be the preferred method for solving quadratic equations, and for good reason. You know, it gives it. What are you trying to do when you solve any equation? Isolate the variable. Well, with quadratic formula, the variable is already isolated. Now, mistakes still happen. I would say that the most common mistake deals with signs. People make mistakes with signs, but also with substitution. They plug in the wrong numbers in the wrong spots and stuff. But so I went over the other couple methods first and then gave you a quiz on it because that's what I wanted you to use for the quiz. But when you take the test on Tuesday, the directions are just going to say to solve. So there you'll have the option to use whichever method you want. What I would advise you to do is when you have a B, you're gonna want to use this one. If you don't have a B term, what method would you want to use when you don't have a B? The one that we just said. Well, no, we just said all of them. Now, we're not factoring is a method that can be used, but that's not really. That was considered part of the last unit, huh? No. You should not need to complete a square when you don't have a B. There's a red one. Everybody likes red. Did you get the right answer? When you don't have a what method have we recently covered that we use when your polynomial does not have a B term? Like we just listed all four.
Wait, I know.
Square root property. Square root property. So the other reason I leave this to the end is because unlike the other two this week, the first step reverts back to putting all the terms on one side. Earlier this week, we put variables on one side and constants on the other, Emma. Now we go back to putting all the terms on one side. What's wrong, Emma Grace? You feel that bad about Elsie's haircut? It's not that bad.
so many.
O'Shea.
Ruby Rose.
I don't know who that is, but
What?
if you say so. I'm just teasing. All I really want is for Emma to pick her head up. Well, this, if anything, resembles more what factoring did, because back when we factored, we would put all the terms on one side. And the second step used to ask us to then factor. And you remember part of factoring was identifying A, B, and C. Well, we're still going to identify A, B, and C, but now we're going to substitute them into the quadratic formula. We're just going to substitute. I give you a formula, you plug it in. When you plug numbers into a formula, what you do, the verb, what the stuff that you do, it's called evaluate. It's just another word for saying simplify. If you take out variables and put in numbers, you're not going to have variables, so all you have to do is PEMDAS. And we'll spend some time talking about that. So here we go, some quick review. If this is the standard form of a quadratic equation, we're going to have to know how to identify A, B, and C. So even if it's not in the correct order, make sure that you know that A is what's in front of the x squared, B is what's in front of the x, and C is a constant. Here's the quadratic formula. As of right now, just so that you know, fair warning, I am not planning on printing this for you on the test on Tuesday. And I doubt I'm going to change my mind, especially when you consider that I end up curving the grades anyway. So the reward would then go to the people that study. Make sure you memorize this. Huh? Yeah, this is called the quadratic formula. And we're going to dissect this and go over every part. What did I tell you are the most common mistakes? I guess I don't have data to back this up. It's more of just an impression I get. But for signs, yeah, people make mistakes with signs. So let's start talking about some of those common mistakes. Starting here. The first number you write after the equal sign is going to be negative b. Well, what does that mean? It means get b and change the sign. When you stick a negative in front of an unknown, you change the sign. Then comes the plus or minus that we're used to from earlier this week. Okay. Then comes this square root that has a b squared minus 4ac. That's what we're going to spend the most time talking about, including at the bottom of this slide. And then over 2a. So I don't know, break it into different pieces, study those pieces, make sure you memorize it. I seriously doubt I'm going to write that on the test. So that part that I told you that we're going to spend the most time talking about, it has a name. It's called a discriminant. It is on the homework? Do you tend to like more work or less work? Yeah, I would think so too. So assuming that you do like less work like most students, I would think you would like it because those types of problems require a lot less work. So the discriminant is significant in a couple of ways. The first way is that if you're asked to solve, like most of the problems are going to ask you to do, that's where we're going to start. We're going to start off on the discriminant. And the reason why we start there is because that's what tells us how many solutions. Depending on what we get for the discriminant, that's going to tell us how many solutions we get. On the test on Tuesday, you're going to have some problems that only ask you how many solutions. So Elsie, if on the homework you're already getting those types of problems that to ask you just how many solutions, you don't have to use the entire formula. You only have to use this part here. And you will have some of that on the test. Yesterday's quiz had how many questions? 10. The test on Tuesday is the test on Tuesday is gonna have more. And you're like, what? But Mr. Man, like I barely finished yesterday, even though that's not really the case. But but what? Now you're gonna put more problems? Yeah, but some of them are gonna be like this, where it's only gonna ask you how many solutions. It shouldn't take you more than a minute because you're not using the entire form. Anywho, last thing before we get to the fun stuff. So the way that you tell how many solutions is by looking at the sign. When you evaluate the discriminant, if you end up with a positive discriminant, that means you're going to have two real solutions. This word root is just another word for solution. Don't let that confuse you. If you end up with a zero discriminant, you're going to end up with one real solution. And if you end up with a negative discriminant, that means you have no solutions. So, all right, let's get started. Let's have fun here. Let's solve. What does the first step say to do? They gotta be better questions. Better questions. Because the equation is already equal to 0, we can identify A, B, and C, but we're not going to use these to factor. We're going to just plug these into quadratic formula. So, the first part of quadratic formula, and it's really sad because people like negative B, right? So if B is 8, what is negative B? Negative 8. Okay, watch your mouth. Negative 8 plus or minus square root of B squared minus 4. Some people ask me, oh, but wait, mister, I'm so confused. I don't see a 4 anywhere. Where'd you get that 4 from? Got it from the formula. It's already there. Formulas are negative 4 is already there. I think Hope should answer questions. Yeah. So, what's the nice thing about quadratic formula? I mean, other than the x that's already by itself, you don't see any variables. So all you really have to do is PEM this. You have to do order of operations. Where did I tell you that we're going to start? Where are we going to start? If only that had a name. No, just the discriminant. Because I like it better. Negative 8 plus or minus the square root of. So here's what happens, right? And we become so reliant on the calculator that we forget to think. So yeah, look, there's a pretty good chance. I would hope that you know what 8 squared is, but you're going to get numbers there where the square is that you don't know and you use the calculator, right? And the thing is, as bad as we are with mental math, some of us are just as bad with a calculator. We don't know the proper keystrokes. Okay, so we end up keying it in incorrectly into the calculator and we get a negative. But anytime you square a number, what type of number do you have to get? A positive. Positive times positive is positive. Negative times negative is positive. You have to get a positive. So even if your calculator is telling you a negative, it's because you keyed it in wrong. Keep that in mind. So yeah, 8 times 8 is 64. Great. Here's another common mistake with signs. Normally, I'm a big advocate for doing one step at a time. This is one of the exceptions, right? In order to hopefully avoid making mistakes with signs, here's a trick. Pretend there's an imaginary line right there after the square. How many numbers do you see to the right of that? 3. Now, this 4 here is not only is the 4 always there, the negative is always there too. So you have to have at least one negative. But you might have 2 numbers negative. You might have 3 numbers negative. If you have an odd amount of negatives, either 1 or 3, the negative is going to stay. If you have an even amount of negatives, which are 2, it's going to turn into a positive. And what that allows us to do is to avoid having to key in a negative into the calculator because we make too many mistakes. How many negatives do I have here? 1, so I'm going to keep the negative. 4 times 1 times 12 is 48. Over 2. I am still not done with the discriminant. I have one more step to go. So now I have to subtract. So my discriminant ends up being 16. What does that tell me? Well, it actually is a perfect square, and we'll get to that, but that's not really what we're going for. Based on what we've learned today so far, the fact that I have a discriminant of 16, what has that now revealed? No, that has not revealed that your mouth is on fire.
Yes.
Why does your shirt backwards?
Oh, it's a thing.
It's a thing?
Yeah.
No.
So you can take pictures of it.
No, it's like upside down.
It's like that.
No tears left out?
Oh my God. It's left to cry.
Oh, no tears left to cry. No.
Yeah, most people come to me like, why is
Elsie, what are you doing?
I'm like, because it is, and they're like,
I have letters, so I'm using my teeth.
I feel bad for your
I'm sure your teeth don't appreciate that. You're gonna have plenty of tears left to cry if you chip something. Come on, somebody tell me. The fact that I ended up with a discriminant of 16, what does that reveal? I now know something that I didn't know before. What do I now know? Like we've literally talked about it today. Well, yeah, that is the discriminant, but what does a discriminant of 16 reveal to me? Yes.
There's one row.
Yes. Go ahead. Now you forgot. Okay. No, that's not true. Okay, tell me how many.
1.
I like it better. Because 16 is a positive number, that tells me I'm supposed to get 2 solutions. Now, ocho. Because the 16 is positive, I told you on the previous page that a positive discriminant tells you that we're going to have 2 solutions. But Taiwan stumbled upon something else. Not only is the 16 positive, it's also perfect. So some people may follow this. Even if it goes over your head, that's fine. You can still live with it. But because the 16 is perfect, that means you're going to be able to do the square root. What's the square root of 16? 4. And if you remember from completing a square, because you were able to do the square root, that also means you're going to be able to do the plus or minus. What did we learn about the plus or minus earlier this week? If you are able to do it, what should you do? You've had enough already. You split it. So 1 with plus and 1 with minus. Just take a little break. I'll give you, if you keep on answering, I'll give you some more. Can you what? No. Sorry. Negative 8 plus 4 is negative 4 over 2, which gives me negative 2. This gives me negative 12 over 2, which is negative 6. Else? Are we writing all this down? Do you? Is it selective? Because, that's why. If I was fixing bracelets up on the board, would you be more inclined to pay attention and write stuff down? Because I have more than one solution, you should be writing a solution set, but you're not really being assessed on that. So, Xavier said we were going to get 2 solutions. Those are the 2 solutions. Va a usar el sanitario. ¿Qué esperas? Prisa, what's that? Prisa, what does that mean? I don't know what that means. No tiene ganas. Y,
Como que no la apura.
es que está muy cansada.
No.
No quieres caminar hasta.
I'm learning Spanish. You don't understand.
We're saying mean things about you.
Necesitas mejorar tu español, mi hermano.
Yeah, boy. Tú necesitas mejorar tu matemática.
Pero es fácil.
We should make up our own language so they
Why do you say it like that was a bad thing? Huh? I said, why do you say it like that was a bad thing? Oh my God.
Yeah, it froze. It does that. Okay, here we go. We're back up. Okay, so what's different about this one?
Que no tiene el cero
Not
al
as many
lado.
variables.
We gotta make it equal to 0. When we were dealing with factoring, okay,
Oh, I remember.
we also made it equal to 0, Isaac, but it was super important that we did everything in our power to try to keep A positive. With quadratic formula, you can actually get away with A being negative. But I feel that if you leave A negative, you're even more likely to make a mistake with a sign. So, yeah, but I'm just trying to tell you that like you could actually get away with leaving A negative here, but I still wouldn't. Since we're all experts with factoring, no, come on again. Since we're all experts with factoring, you might look at that and instantly recognize it. Hey, look, Mr. Romero, that's a perfect square trinomial, and it actually is. But we're not trying to factor today. We're going to use quadratic formula. So A is 1, B is 6, and C is 9. X is equal to, if B is 6, what is negative B?
-1, -6.
It is -6, good, plus or minus the square root of 6 squared minus 4 times 1 times 9 over 2 times 1. Start off in the discriminant. I would hope we know what 6 squared is in our head. You're probably not going to make a mistake when that number in there is positive, but just make sure you're getting a positive. So 36. How many negatives come afterwards?
1.
Just 1. So you keep the minus. 4 times 1 times 9 is 36. Elsie, you're going to like this one.
Who's that this time?
Because 36 minus 36 is 0. What does that reveal? I now know that I have a discriminant of 0. What does that mean?
Why you gotta do it to them like that? That was nice. That was rude.
He's going to try for the football team next year.
Come on, man. You already tried.
Try.
JB gonna light you up, boy. I know. They already said that. There's like, if you get on the football team, I know.
Yeah, what Jonathan said, even though he said it in a very low voice, was that that tells me I'm going to have one solution. Now, the reason why I have one solution is, well, because what's the square root of 0? 0, so in effect, that cancels out the square root. But not only did it cancel out the square root, what's anything plus 0? Itself. What's anything minus 0? Itself. So it also cancels out the plus or minus. So that one solution that Jonathan was talking about is the number on the outside divided by the bottom, which is -3. Now this is also really sad because I've had plenty of students who are good students that pay attention and do everything right, but because of due to careless mistakes, if they did everything right, but you just messed up by forgetting to put that negative there, it happens all the time. Yeah, you're gonna get it wrong because you wouldn't get -3, you would get +3, and it's not the same. All right. What's different here? Yeah, and even though before with factoring we liked parentheses, we only really liked parentheses when there was a 0 on the other side. Here there is no this. So even if I wanted to factor, I couldn't. Like, it's not going to help me here. I got to get rid of the parentheses. How am I going to get rid of it? Distribute. Good.
Where my candy at?
It's in the back.
Show someone. You should have Xavier.
You guys should hug it out after class.
Site.
But I still have to make this equal to 0. So I do so. 2x squared minus 2x minus 3 is equal to 0.
Jesus Christ.
Huh? Yeah, A is 2, B is -2, and C is -3. Pay close attention here. After I write x is equal to, I'm supposed to write -b, but now b is -2.
So it's positive.
It's going to be positive. Plus or minus the square root of.
So this is the only time it's actually negative. It's the only time it's actually positive.
The negative in front of the b tells you that to change b's sign. The way I remembered it when I was in Algebra 1 as a student was first time I write b, change the sign. Second time I write b, keep it the same. But then even on top of that, like somebody last period brought up a very good point. Because hey, the formula tells me to write -2 squared, and the kid was like, well, but why are you writing -2? It's going to become positive anyways. And yes, he's right. It is going to become positive. If you are going to make a mistake with a sign, make it now. Like, write +2 instead of -2, because there you can actually get away with it. Just make sure that once you square, you get a positive. Then we get the -4 like we always are supposed to. Then 2, then -3. Then 2 always times a, which is 2. So x is equal to that +2 plus or minus. We always start off in the discriminant. -2 squared, make sure you get a 4. How many negatives are to the right? There's 2, so that's going to be a plus. By knowing that rule, that allows us to avoid having to type in negatives into the calculator, which you think might be easy, but a lot of you do incorrectly. So I'm not going to put -4 times, so I put 4 times 2 times 3. I know that gives me 24. 4. So x is equal to 2 plus or minus the square root of 28 over 4. What do I now know that I did not know before? 28 is positive, and because 28 is positive, what does that mean? Because I have a positive discriminant, what does that mean?
Wait. Two solutions.
It means I'm going to have 2 solutions. Okay. Now the thing is, what some of you I think were struggling with here, 28 is not perfect. So I'm not going to be able to entirely get rid of the square root, which means I'm not going to be able to do the plus or minus, but I might be able to partially do the square root. We take it back to January and do a factor tree. 28 has 2 2s and a 7, so I can bring out 2. X is equal to 2 plus or minus 2 square root of 7 over 4. Because I was not able to remove the square root, that means I won't be able to do the plus or minus. If I can't do the plus or minus, there's no need to split, just like with when we did completing the square. In many cases, you'd be done right now. I say probably more than half the time in something like this, you'd be done. But there are some exceptions, including this one, because you might still be able to do division. You can't do the plus or minus, but you might be able to do the division. if all three outside numbers, and there always have to be three outside numbers, so this one in front, there's going to have to be one here, because if there isn't, there's a 1, and you can't do anything with it. But if there are two numbers on the top and the number on the bottom, and they all have a common factor, which now they do, what can they all be divided by? Then you have to go ahead and do so. 2 divided by 2 is 1, 2 divided by 2 is 1, 4 divided by 2 is 2. When you rewrite this, the first one you do need, but the second one, since it's in front of a square root, you don't need, so you would just write that over 2, and then all the children replaced.
Oh, welcome.
Her name is Esperanza. Vida.
It's just sitting there and we're like, acting.
Greetings. All right, I'm gonna just sprinkle this one in here as a sneak preview on tomorrow's on tomorrow's practice test and on the real test. You're gonna have some questions like this, where instead of asking you to solve, we're gonna go right back to solving on the next one. But instead of asking you to solve, it's gonna say how many solutions. I haven't said anything. Or let me rephrase, I haven't asked anything. Okay? I told you that on tomorrow's practice test and on the real test, some questions are only going to ask you how many solutions. Okay, so that's what we're going to treat this one as. I am not going to solve this equation. I'm just going to ask you how. I haven't asked you yet, but I will ask you how many solutions, right? Now here comes the question. How does that change my approach? If I am only asked for the number of solutions, what should I do? What should I do differently? Very good. I do not need to use the entire formula. I only need to use the discriminant. Now look, I still want to make it equal to 0. Luckily it is. I still want to identify A, B, and C. But instead of plugging it into the entire formula, I'm only going to plug it into b squared minus 4ac, because I just want to see what sign I end up with. So b is negative 4 squared minus 4a is 1, c is negative 5. What is negative 4 squared? Positive 16, make sure you're getting a positive. How many negatives come afterwards? 2. So make it positive. 4 times 1 times 5 is 20. That gives me 36. That does not mean that x is 36. I am not solving. But because 36 is positive, that's all I care about is the sign. And because 36 is positive, that means that this equation would have 2, and really you should be putting the word real, but whatever, we'll fight one battle at a time. But this has 2 real solutions.
You don't put real solutions?
Well, luckily you don't have to put much of anything, because I can't think of, other than the practice test, I can't think of anything that I've given you that hasn't been multiple choice. So if the word real needs to be there, it will be there.
All right.
And on the Google form that I give you for the practice test, I would never, even if I do sprinkle in some short reply, those are just normally just numbers. Like if that were to happen and you had to type it in, you would just type in the 2. You wouldn't have to write any words. For cheesy. All right, so let's go back to solving. Do it. First step. Well, yes, I have to make it equal to 0, but that's not going to be possible until I distribute. So
I got it right.
I got it left.
You got the center.
I need it. I want it.
Do you like
What? Yeah. Okay.
He said no. No, not really.
Emma, I saw you on walk yesterday after school.
And how did that make you feel? Did it make you angry inside? So if those of you that are off to a head start, good. I'm glad. Just see if you can do this on your own. But I'm gonna keep on going. X is equal to negative 12 plus or minus the square root of 12 squared minus 4 times 12 times 3 over 2 times 12. All I did was substitution. Memorize the formula. I am 99.9% sure that I will not write this for you on the test or give you a reference sheet of any type.
Yes.
So
If you want to memorize it in your brainium and then like write it down on your worksheet, like as soon as I let you start, that's up to you. But
what if I read that?
no, write it in your brain. Negative 12 plus or minus square root of 144. How many negatives come after the square? 1. So keep it minus 4 times 12 times 3 is also 144. What? Okay, so he just asked, can we do some more that just has b squared minus 4 and see which, so where I would counter, well, I am doing that. That's what I'm doing right now. So by solving everything, I'm already incorporating that into like every single one that we've done is used b squared minus 4ac. It's just that if you're asked how many solutions, that's all you have to do. It's just I want less work instead of more work. Well, we ended up with a zero discriminant for that, and that's the second time that's happened today. Elsie, how's your attention doing now? No. Sounds good. So what does this mean? What does this mean? What does this mean? Esperanza, what does this mean? It does have a solution. It does have a solution. Yeah, there's one solution. Just like earlier today, this cancels, that cancels. Your only solution is going to be negative 12 over 24. But you wouldn't leave it like that because what is negative 12 over 24 reduced to? Close. Negative 1/2. Here you go, Jay. Tienes razón, tienes razón. I'm sure that's the reason. I think it's here. Isaac was sleeping. Why not, Isaac, let her sit in your seat. See if she can come up with different excuses today. Just yeah, you can move back. You haven't done anything today. Yeah, just switch. If you want, I could even make it permanent because it seems like you were asking me to move back the other day. So yeah, sure. But come on, I'm giving you an opportunity. We could even make it permanent if you like. Are you and Hope still on good terms? Good. But you don't like Emma that much, though. Just kidding.
Did you ever cut it?
Esperanza. First step. Eres una bestia. Okay, then let's substitute into quadratic formula. A is 3, B is 1, C is 3. So x is equal to, if b is 1, that'd be negative 1 plus or minus the square root of 1 squared minus 4 times 3 times 3 over 2 times a, which is 2 times 3. How's that pencil doing? And the paper. It's Emma's fault. 1 squared is 1. How many negatives come afterwards?
Go up, go up.
No, you go up.
Negative.
There's one negative good, so 4 times 3 times 3 is 36 over 6. X is equal to negative 1 plus or minus the square root of negative 35 over 6. What has just revealed itself? Because I have a negative discriminant. You're going to like these the best. That means I do not have a real solution. I can't solve. So no real solutions. Fax machine. How does T feel about you?
I love T.
Yeah, there you go. David says make it equal to 0.
No. No.
So 10x squared minus 11x plus 3 is equal to 0. A is 10, B is negative 11, and C is 3. You guys need to hug it out for real. You guys are friends.
Okay, then you plug it in with the quadratic formula.
Yeah, whoa! If B is negative 11, what is negative B?
Positive.
Positive 11. Plus or minus the square root of negative 11 squared minus 4 Taiwan.
Yes.
So this way. Yeah, how can you pay attention?
Hey man, no, it's not. It's just natural water.
Now see, here's an interesting one because I'm supposed to square negative 11. I would venture to guess that more than half of you do not know what that is in your head. So you'd probably be more inclined to use a calculator, but you probably also key it in incorrectly into the calculator. So, well, on the test you will have one. Yeah, so you'd probably be tempted to write negative 121 because that's probably what the calculator is going to tell you, but Papa Romero took care of you and told you to make sure it's positive, so positive 121. How many negatives come after that? Yeah, there's one negative, so keep it negative. 4 times 10 times 3 is 120. When I subtract, I get a positive 1, which even though it's barely positive, it is positive. So what do I now know?
Oh, I know.
What? That we have a, there's no solution. What's wrong with you, man? Yes, I am going to have 2 solutions. Look, Elsie, there's 2 solutions. And then because the 1 is perfect, that means you can also do the square root. And if you can do the square root, that means you can do the plus minus. And if you can do the plus minus, that means you can split it. 11 plus 1 over 20, 11 minus 1 over 20. So 12 over 20. What's the biggest number I can divide 12 and 20 by?
4.
Or 4, as the cool kids say. And then 10 over 20 is just 1/2. This has 2 solutions, so you would write them in a solution set.
Can I get my ISS changed to Monday so
I didn't put you in ISS, so I don't know what.
We're not doing computers this week. We're doing practice test tomorrow.
Practice test
Why
tomorrow.
did you do that?
Higher than that, Jocelyn, or? Okay, last one. Jocelyn, yes, good. Listo. First step, Xavier, after you put your phone away, is make it equal to 0. What? A is equal to 6, B is equal to 31, C is equal to negative 12. Oh, the numbers are big. Were you staring deep into his eyes?
No.
Because much like the discriminant, that can also reveal something. His eyes. The mystery. If B is 31, negative 31 plus or minus the square root of 31 squared minus 4 times 6 times negative 12.
I'm going to play my game on my desk, but I had my pen since when I did it. That hurt so bad. That sounds so bad.
X is equal to negative 31 plus or minus the square root of somebody help me out with that one. 31 squared. What is it? It's like 960 something. 963? 961. 961. Okay. How many negatives come after the square? So change it to a plus. 4 times 6 times 12 is 288.
Yes, I do. That was hope.
That was not you threw it at me.
So then maybe you guys can go to detention together then?
No.
By yourself.
No.
Is that 1249? Can somebody with a calculator check that for me? 961 plus 288.
1249.
Yeah. Which is positive, so what do we know?
Split it.
No. We know that there's two solutions because it's positive. We only split it if we can do the square root, but what happens if you put square root of 1249 in the calculator? Yeah, you got an actual decimal. So your only choice is to try to do a factor tree. But even when I tried the last period. I'll help you out with that. I put 1249 divided by 3, 1249 divided by 7, 1249. I started dividing by prime numbers. Nothing worked. So I believe that number is prime. And because that's prime, you can't do the plus minus. There's also nothing in common for dividing. So we're actually done here. That's the most you would be able to simplify. Okay, the question is does that mean that there's no solution? No. How many solutions did we say that there's going to be? 2. The only thing is that would be a nasty decimal. This is as much as you can simplify without getting that decimal. Nobody likes it. Muhammad, go ahead.